Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tampa Bay Real Producers Podcast. This, of course, is the podcast made for real producers by real producers, such as our guest today, Mr. Rock Scaglione. How you doing, Rock?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
It's nice to finally meet you in person.
Same here.
We featured Rock and his wife, Jennifer Rudemeller. They have a team called Scaglione Rudemeller Group with Keller Williams South Tampa office. We'll talk about the team, of course, and how we got things growing. But we had featured Rock and Jennifer as a team leader spotlight. It was actually a year ago. I looked at that earlier this morning. It was last September.
Yeah.
It's crazy how fast that went. But yeah, it was September 2022's issue of Tampa Bay Real Producers that you guys were spotlighted in.
We appreciate that.
And yeah, no doubt. So you guys can check it out there on our website, or those of you who have some of the past issues from before, you can see it there. But let's start a little bit, Rock, with just your story. So, did you grow up in the Tampa Bay area? If not, how'd you get here? And when did real estate become an interest for you?
Yeah, so, my story is born and raised in Tampa, Florida. My family goes back.
You are a local yokel, huh?
Local yokel, yeah. Family goes back 5 generations. So, sometimes tell the story about my great-grandfather who came from Sicily. That's the Scaglione side of the family. And started in the restaurant business, actually.
Nice.
And so there was actually a restaurant up until last year called Tony's Ybor Restaurant, which was a block north of the Columbia restaurant in Ybor City, which just closed after 93 years in business.
Wow.
Started by my great-grandfather, Nunzio Scaglione.
Wow.
In the heyday of Ybor City.
That's awesome.
And, initially they were serving Cuban sandwiches to the factory workers of the Hava Tampa cigar factory.
Yep.
And they were right across the street. And so they had, my great-grandfather had 10 or 12 children. And they all grew up in the business. And so later, my dad branched off with his father, and they started their own restaurant, which was on Fowler Avenue near the University of South Florida when University of South Florida was new. So I grew up pretty much in the family restaurant business.
Yeah.
And big
Tampa's
family,
in the roots,
big
for
Italian
sure.
Family, yeah.
Very cool. So you never wanted to pursue the restaurant angle, huh?
Yeah, I remember my dad saying, choose another path.
He learned the hard way.
Right. So
were any of them in real estate, or how did that start getting into the family?
No, it was around 1995. I was in my latter high school years, and the restaurant was closing at that time. So where that could have been a potential career trajectory for me, it was pretty obvious. Like, no, you're going to college. You're gonna pursue an education and explore the world.
Yeah.
And so I went to Florida State, came back to Tampa. Actually, coincidentally, today we're sitting, of course, in the building here on West Shore. This is the location of my first job ever.
Oh wow.
So I thought that was a little funny that we were meeting here.
Doing
today.
what?
And it was, it was in sales, it was in telecom.
Okay.
So it was commercial, selling basically, long distance and like internet solutions to small and medium-sized businesses across the Bay Area.
Gotcha.
So that was fairly short-lived. The company was bought out 4 months after my first, for my foray there, and I was quickly moving on. I then moved into the financial planning space, and similar area here in West Shore, and worked for about 6 years in the financial planning space. And so I think, nowadays in the real estate world, even though I've pivoted a bit, had a colorful career in outside sales, I think I take with me bits and pieces of those learnings along the way, especially in personal financial planning.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think sales skills are transferable in any business, right? But without a doubt in real estate for sure. Just learning some of the things you probably had to do to get good, whether it was telephone sales or however you would, whatever your method was to be able to communicate your service.
Right.
I'm sure that played a role in your success in real estate. So when did the interest in real estate spark, and how did that whole thing start?
It's funny. A good friend of mine, Chris Hounshell, who's also with a Remax office, I had the chance, I think probably the first time I was intrigued by real estate was in the early days when I was financial planning. Chris came in and to do some financial planning, and he had recently pivoted into real estate. So we were at that time founding a nonprofit organization called Bay Area Advisors, who's gone on to plan some cool events like Martinis for Moffitt, and that's still in play today. But we were some of the founding members. We were in our, I guess, maybe mid-20s. and he was sharing his experiences in real estate. I was teaching him about financial planning and how to build wealth. And so we just I think there was some intrigue there. He was doing very well. Those were exciting times in real estate. That was in that early 2000 run up.
Yep.
And so there was initial intrigue there, but it wasn't until quite a bit later that I circled back and got into real estate, and basically the beginning of 2017.
Okay.
And that was on the tail.
That's when you got licensed?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a license in January 2017, and that was on the tail of coming back from New York City. So again, I said colorful history. So I had actually...
Were you in financial business in New York?
I wasn't there. So I started in the financial space. I had a middle career sort of intrigue to get into the media side of things. That was kind of playing off my background and education and my schooling at Florida State.
You were a communications major? Or?
I was a communications major at Florida State. And before I moved to New York, I was with WFLA News Channel 8 here in Tampa, which was also a collective media property with the Tampa Tribune and TBO. And so I was doing ad sales, again, targeting local, mid-sized and small businesses. I was doing outside sales to generate ad revenue for the station.
Sure.
And
I can relate to that.
Yeah, that's your space. And then I went to New York for 5 years between the years of 2012 and essentially 2017. And I stayed in the media realm, although at that time there were startups, mostly in the YouTube space, the influencer marketing space, which was gaining some steam at that time. And my last role for a few years in New York City was I was doing really kind of like talent management, connecting major Fortune 500 brands with, various YouTube influencers to do product endorsement deals.
Were you living in Manhattan at the time?
I was, yeah.
Did you like the city?
I loved it. It was a big adult playground.
It is, yeah. I grew up in Danbury, Connecticut, so I was about 45 minutes east of the city. But I grew up there, going to Yankees games as a kid, going to the Bronx on the Metro North train, and my dad would take me to Yankee games all the time growing up. But I used to love living close enough to the city that we would be able to get there. We used to go there for New Year's Eve pretty much every year. Never like the big ball drop spot, because that was for the tourists.
Was mayhem.
But we'd have our own fun, on New Year's Eve in other ways. But yeah, I love living in Tampa, but that's one thing I do miss, is being as close to the city as we were up there.
Yeah, the energy, the diversity, it's just something just feels different when you're in Manhattan.
For sure.
Although, Tampa's on the map.
Yeah,
and
it is. What brought you back down here?
It was interesting. In 2012, we were still kind of coming out of the ashes of the last sort of economic, bubble, if you will. And, Tampa was doing some really exciting things. I was involved prior to that time with Emerge Tampa, which is a sort of young professionals chapter of Tampa, the Chamber of Commerce. And, but I just had this like fire in my belly to go try something different. And we had kind of grown up visiting Manhattan and New York City and friends there. So I just sort of said, you know what, I'm going to pack my bags and go and see what happens. And it was great. I mean, it was an adventurous time. It was the city was just, there was just lots of energy. You have people from all over the world descending onto Manhattan. The whole vibe.
Best food in the world. You can get anything you want. All you gotta do is walk out your door and you can find anything you need.
Oh yeah. Yep. Every block consists of a coffee shop, several restaurants. Your dry cleaner.
Without a doubt.
And so it can become very convenient. In fact, I didn't have a car for 5 years.
Yeah, you don't even need one there.
Shift for me. But after 5 years of doing the concrete jungle and that big energy feel, I was approaching my late 30s at that time, and just looking to settle down and return to my roots. And so my heart just said, I think it's time to pack up and head back to Tampa. And in doing so, I thought, well, in going back to Tampa, the one criteria, the one condition was I wanted to do my own thing. Now, I'd worked for companies most of my life. I wanted to get back into starting a business, growing a business. And I thought, I was always intrigued by real estate. There's no better time than now. From nothing, anything is possible. So I took that step. Yeah,
it makes sense. So you got licensed. Were you with KW from the get-go?
So that sort of ties in my connection with my partnership with Jennifer. So when Jenny and I actually had just started dating just prior to my return to Tampa.
Okay.
And so in coming back, we were getting a little bit more serious.
She was in New York with you up there?
She lived in Tampa and was working in real estate with Keller Williams South Tampa
Gotcha.
in Tampa, and she was doing quite well. And I said, I'm the rookie here. I've sold a lot of things, I've been in outside sales my entire career, but I'm going to give this real estate thing a try. And so I got my license. So she was up and running. We decided pretty early on to forge a partnership. And one of the things that I'm thankful for to this day is the fact that, I really knew nothing about the technical aspects of real estate.
Sure.
And of course you don't learn much about how to go out and be a realtor, and
taking that
and
test.
exams. Yeah.
Right.
So, in those early years, it enabled me in that partnership that we forged to really focus on the business development aspect of things, meeting people, seeing people, doing some marketing to some extent. And she was able to bring that technical know-how, and we could ride shotgun on deals together.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
Without having to go through that learning curve, because we were working that together.
Did you know Jennifer from your roots in Tampa prior, or how were you guys dating if you were in New York and she had that connection happen?
We got off to a fast start, so it really we were talking maybe several months before my move back to Tampa. So
Gotcha.
Things happened very quickly, and when I did move back and decided to get into real estate, just kind of candidly and jokingly, I think she was like, "We'll see how this plays out." A lot of people.
Is this guy serious or what?
So she may have been begrudgingly going into this partnership of sorts, in the early days, but I think she would agree that things have paid off quite nicely.
No doubt.
Because now, fast forward 7 years later, we have 2 children together. We own properties together. We have our business together, and she's now starting to take kind of downshift and focus more time at home.
Yep.
Although she'd kill me if I said that she's out of the business, because she's not.
Yeah.
In fact, she just, she's always getting calls from her past clients and our past clients who just love their Jenny, saying, "Hey, we need to list our property," or what have you. So
was she a solo agent before you guys hooked up for the team?
Was.
She was operating individually, and when you guys started working together, was the goal from the beginning to build a team, or was that not? Was that just kind of, did that happen later on? Did that happen organically?
Yeah, we there may have been some subtle thoughts in the back of my mind about if I'm going to do this and go down this route, I'd like to build something bigger here. Of course, making sure that partnership was going to be a fit, and that was going, so we had enough work to do on just, building our partnership and
Sure.
our small team before we grew to that sort of level, which we still have not. We're still very much just a duo, if you will. So with that said, I guess the way to answer that is, it was enough of a task or challenge to learn one another's, business
Strengths
style, and to acclimate to one another while managing a new relationship and all that comes along with that. So it was a little
it's
risky.
interesting. A lot of people want to separate that, right?
Yeah.
The personal life from the business. And then I've also seen it be very, very successful for people to merge it and support each other as business partners, but also as a couple. And so I'm curious from your perspective, like, I'm assuming did you have fears going into that partnership, thinking I'm dating this woman, but now I also am going to be her business partner? were there concerns from that perspective, or did you kind of feel like from the get-go that we're going to be able to make this work?
I think one of my strengths is that I'm optimistic. I tend to look at half glass full. This is going to work out. Let's vision plan. Let's back into this. Let's break this down to how And so I'm so consumed with the vision of where I'm going and where we're going, and then kind of dissecting how do we get there, and creating action plans that support that I don't spend a lot of time questioning whether this is going to work out. I try not to live there, too often. So that's at least where I was at. Maybe blind ignorance, but
Sometimes that's the best kind.
Yeah, but at the same time, we would hit some barriers or some ceilings every now and then, and we'd have to confront that. We'd have to say, okay, we have different styles here. There's a little conflict here. You see things one way, I see things another way. We need to sit down, talk this through, and resolve it.
Right.
And so, I think we both have the capacity to, oftentimes say, you can get so busy working in your business that you stop working on your business. And I think we all struggle with that. And, so at least, a couple times a year or at least once a year. Right now, I've just gone through a few week exercise of trying to really pause. It's a nice time in the market where, things are kind of resetting.
Yep.
The pace has changed a little bit. So it's a great time to slow down, get back to the core, think about where have we come, where are we heading? And
this is also one of my favorite times of year to just do, it's the annual planning time for the next year. And what do I want my next year to look like? What have I learned from the year I'm currently in? I think all of those questions come into play when you're thinking about this time of year, right?
Right.
And how to lay the foundation for what you want to see happen moving forward. So when you think about the fact you mentioned earlier, you guys are operating really as like a power duo right now in your business. What are, in your opinion, you might have mentioned one of them, the fact that she has strengths, you have strengths. Hopefully those strengths complement each other, right? But what are some of the benefits that you believe from having that type of a structure with the duo, the team, and really the team being the two of you, right? What are some of those benefits that you feel like has really helped you guys? And can you maybe, share one challenge that you had to that you experienced because of the structure itself of the dual effort, or has it been nothing but roses?
It's a great question. So I think the biggest benefit was from the onset being able to. We didn't have that. I didn't feel like we had the learning curve that most businesses go through, or the acceleration phase, the growth phase, getting out of the starting blocks. It didn't take us as long to get out of the starting blocks. Jenny was already running a business. She had the processes side of things down. She probably could have benefited from more business development, more, structured marketing and things of that nature. So I was able to focus on the areas where her business was lacking, and she was able to bring to the table all of the components of the business that I would have been, struggling to learn in those early days. And so that served us very well for at least the first year and a half. And then, I became acclimated to the process and the business and the systems, and, I could fly on my own if needed. But that was really important to that first year and a half. And the challenges, as time went on and we aspired to attain, higher levels of production and place bigger goals for ourselves, we realized in order to grow, we need to consider expanding. And we need to bring on other individuals into the team who will take off some of these hats of ours and distribute the workload. And, the team building piece has been a little bit of a struggle for us, frankly. We tend to meet people in our business who are entrepreneurially minded and aspirational to go out and to become successful in real estate, but oftentimes they look at joining a team as a good perhaps a stepping stone. Yeah. And so we have, at various chapters in our business, have invested time, energy to bring on producers and/or administrative help to help us to create leverage and help us get to the next level. But we probably haven't been always the best managers as well. So there's definitely areas where we need to focus on being better, managing team members, creating culture, and something that they want to be a part of and stay a part of.
Yep. Are there agents on the team now, or is it just you and Jen still?
So my sister is licensed, and she is an agent on our team. Her name is Leah. And
shout out to Leah.
She's also a full-time teacher. So
Nice.
she's doing this part-time. But aside from that, it's Jennifer and myself. We've had buyer's agents in the past. We've had transaction coordinators who are licensed on the team. At this stage in the game, we outsource our TC, our transaction coordinator, and we are currently interviewing for a full-time staff person again, who will become part of the team as an executive assistant, essentially licensed.
Do you find, Rock, that you enjoy that part of the business, the team building side of it, whether it's the interviewing, the recruiting elements, attracting the right talent, figuring out what that culture, how you're going to define the culture, right, that you want to enroll people into. Is that something that you enjoy more than working with just the nuts and bolts of the business, right? Working with clients, buyers and sellers. Has that been part of the struggle at all? Or do you enjoy both? Would you say equally? How would you define? Because they're very different jobs, right?
Very different.
Yep.
Yeah. It's, I would say I enjoy the idea of building a team and developing people and sharing what I have learned and my, rather extensive sales profession, and then almost 7 years in real estate itself. So I believe that I have things that I can contribute to elevate the lives and careers of other maybe newer or younger associates in the business. Having said that, I would say that it probably doesn't come natural to me.
Yeah.
I can admit that it doesn't come natural, and it's going to be something I need to work on, focus, and develop the skills to manage and lead people. I've run nonprofit organizations, I've run charitable golf tournaments, I've chaired certain committees, and so on a volunteer basis, it's one thing. The daily grind of building a business and a company, it's a little bit different.
Sure.
So I think I'm capable of it, but I would say because also when you're in outside sales, you are entrepreneurial to an extent, and I've spent more than 20 years in outside sales. For various organizations, but it's really, you're out there doing your own thing, so I'm, left to myself, sitting in my office, calling, being on the phone, calling, prospective clients, managing my pipeline of deal flow.
Yep.
I'm good with that. I've mastered that.
Yep.
It's making that pivot to, managing, facilitating, and really a big part of that is trust.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you could be very successful in this business, never even making that transition, right?
Right.
Just staying focused on working with clients and continuing to do your thing. We interview people all the time who are top producers each and every single year. That's their model. They love it. They thrive in it, and they know their lane, right?
Right.
And then we've also interviewed tons of people who are more passionate, seem to be more driven by that team building side of things, and love the recruiting, love the culture building, love the empowerment of others, and coaching. And it is, in my opinion, different skill sets,
right, different
businesses in many, many ways, all within the real estate realm, but different paths. And so, I feel like for a lot of people who maybe don't have clarity on which path is the right one, right, for them, because they kind of go back and forth, if that, or they dabble with one and not the other. You guys have already been successful, obviously, on just producing volume.
Right.
What's been your best year, by the way, as a team?
Our best year was 21. We had just eclipsed 33 million.
Very cool.
And volume.
Yep.
And we did.
Jennifer did about 32 of that. And
oh, absolutely, 100%, yeah.
Hopefully she's watching, right? A little shout out to Jennifer out there.
So no, she, it's we've both contributed in our own ways. We're kind of hovering back down towards 25 million in that ballpark the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And so again, we've had a couple of kids in that realm. It's
doubt.
hard to really point to what specifically, contributed to a banner year in 21 versus, a step back in 22. And, obviously, the industry at large has also changed.
Yep.
But I can look back and see, where our business benefited or profited in certain ways due to the natural momentum of the market in certain years and the flood of outside.
It's natural.
There's natural.
What gets you most excited when you think of next year, right? 2024 and beyond. And I'm sure you guys have had your planning sessions. You kind of lay out your vision of what you want to see happen. Do you see yourself more focused again on just increasing volume, working with your client base, serving them at a high level? Or again, are you thinking that team building, recruiting, putting those systems into place, do either one of those excite you more, or which one kind of gets your vision more fired up?
Yeah. So I would say that where we're at now is taking, a deep dive and kind of self-reflecting and saying, just like you're asking, where do we see ourselves? And so I think in order to do that, you need to look, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out. And if you do aspire to build a team or an organization, I think that starts now. And we have made those attempts before, and we will make those attempts again. The way I see it is that you can do both, really. I truly believe that we love our clients. We love being in the business of real estate. Nothing gives me more joy than to get a call, email, or text from a client. Hey, you sold us this home, 3 years ago. We're reevaluating our options. Can we get together, tag up? I just had 2 of those meetings this week. We're not ready to pull any triggers, but so I just love, rolling up the sleeves, talking business, talking from really speaking with them from a background, from an overall perspective of wealth management and circumstances in life, and really trying to help build that solution. So I think I'll always want to have a piece of that client interaction, and I won't ever leave that behind. But I do believe that you have the capacity to do both. That you can train, you can train newer associates and help them develop their career. And I do want to give back in that way. So it's less about the money and the profitability of building an organization. It's more about doing something that I've not yet done. It's a little bit of a challenge to ourselves to say, can we do this? Can we impart more value and help more people? And
you seem like a guy who gets excited about a new challenge.
Yeah,
something that you haven't done before based on the story so far. Like you've had a couple different businesses, a couple different sales careers, different experiences. And I can relate to that in many ways because I find myself sometimes getting a little itchy if I'm in something for too long, I can easily get bored of it. And then wanting that next thing that's going to get me fired up again to kind of go after something new, right? And tackle a new obstacle. I can relate to that if I'm reading it correctly anyway, for what I can sense. I'm curious
experience.
Of the roles you've had, because you've had some great different experiences in sales, obviously now in the real estate world. Do you miss certain things that you did in finance or in the sales careers or even in media as compared to where you're at today, right? In real estate, do you feel like this is the right niche for you and that you found kind of the, quote unquote, the one? Or do you feel like, it's just part of the journey and you kind of, there's certain things that maybe you miss there, but you feel like, this fulfills you in a different way? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Every chapter of my life has been intriguing, and I've really focused on being present to what is there to learn here. And I've never worried too much about where am I at, where am I going. I tend to sort of surrender to the universe in some ways, not to be too cheesy there, but and listen to where my heart is guiding me. But I do think it's important to be in the moment and to focus on how can I make the biggest impact now. And so I think that requires being able to look at what is it, we don't know how we're going to feel a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, or who we're going to be. But what we do know is maybe, what the next 6 months looks like. So I think it's important to look at where you think you'll be 5 years from now, where you think you'd like to be 10 years from now, but get focus on what can I do in the next 6 months that help me get to that direction. But then stick your head up out of your work, out of your desk, and say, how are we feeling now? And I think that's important.
Do you feel like what you've experienced in real estate so far has met the expectations you had when you got into the game?
This business has resonated with me more and better than any other business I've been affiliated with. And it's a bit of a culmination of all of the things I've done. I've in the early years of my financial planning, we learned how to help people protect their assets, build assets, talk about the tax consequences of their financial decisions and moves. So many different facets around going deep within someone's financial planning. That I carry with me today. Today, I have we're having a wealth management conversation, and real estate is one piece of that equation.
For sure.
I'm not getting deep into their investment portfolio, but it's certainly a piece of the equation. So we can look macroeconomically.
And the consulting angle that I think that brings
Right.
has got to serve you on the real estate side, because I think the best agents that I've gotten to know in this role are ones who view themselves as a consultant, right?
Right.
Asking certain questions, really being good listeners, and that and finding out the motivations behind the seller or the buyer. And I think that's a big part of what you would have to do in the financial world too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of carryover. I never thought, when I left the financial planning space, I never thought I'd go back to that living room environment. If you know that dining room table conversation,
Right.
I thought it would be more business to business is where my career would take me. And lo and behold, I'm back in the living room and in the dining room table.
Just couldn't get out of the living room, bro.
It's like Jerry Maguire, man, right? It's like,
As soon as you thought you were out, they sucked you right back in, huh?
right. And you know, even my time in the media and the marketing space, you know, now that I'm the small business owner, of course, I'm not taking the advice I gave for many years when I was in the marketing and, you know, and advertising space. All the advice that I would give my clients, like, you should, you know, invest in this, you should, you know, market here. You know, you could see ways where you're acting
A little inconsistent.
a little inconsistent to some of the advice that you gave some really big brands, great brands.
Well, one of the things I was going to ask you about,
Yeah.
though, is because you have been in real estate now, 6 years, I guess, since you've been licensed. There's certain strategies, I'm assuming, that you guys have implemented that have worked
Right.
For you guys, specifically in the real estate space, to have a consistent business, right? To have volume. What are some of those favorite strategies that you guys have built the business on? Lead gen sources, maybe it's, certain prospecting strategies, maybe it's certain referral-based strategies. What are some things that you think have been a staple of the team, of you and Jennifer's success?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that attributed to, and I mentioned it in the article that we were interviewed for as a part of your publication, but in the early years, I think one of the things that served our business and that we, again, you don't know, and there's so many different areas that you can invest in marketing or lead gen and probably be successful. So I don't believe that there's any one that's better than the other. I think that you simply put forth some budget, take some risk, and then study the results and see how that's playing out for your business. And if there's an ROI, then say, let's double down on that, right? And let's keep growing that. And when you stop seeing an ROI, I think you need to probably back off the throttle a bit. But Zillow, for us, becoming a Zillow Premier agent was something that I think it was the right time. We, being new to the business, having all this energy and time on my hands in 2017 to go out and work business, but the phone's not going to ring on its own. How do we accelerate that process? And so we partnered with a lender who did some co-marketing with us, and we put a little bit of budget just to test Zillow. And it was a time when a lot of outside, when families were moving into the Tampa area, and that continued fairly consistently, and really there was some great trajectory of. There's a lot of success in that strategy. So we scaled up our budget in Zillow Premier, and really that was a big ROI for us, at least halfway through 2021.
Yep.
And then we started to see some changes.
Yep.
And we had to sort of pivot. We stuck with it until very recently, frankly. And so now we've backed off the throttle a little bit with Zillow.
Do you still pay for leads in other sources?
Outside of Zillow, we, and again, I would say that allowed us to build a client base very quickly, in addition to the referral business that we were getting from friends and family members and things of that nature. Other areas, we've done some direct mail to specific targeted zip codes, and we probably would say that we haven't done it consistently, or we've tested certain areas. But we don't have but now I think we're kind of gearing that back up. So we've moved some money around to get back into farming in a more consistent way. And I'm referring to just like, mailers to an identified, group of households, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 households in a specific area where we live and play and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And the key to that is consistency, really, just to have that ongoing brand you want to be top of mind when the need arises, right? And God knows we don't have a crystal ball. Nobody knows when the perfect timing is. It would be great if we did. But generally, how those strategies tend to work, at least from what I've studied and seen, is when you know what area you would love to have a presence in, and you're willing to commit to that area and consistently invests X amount of dollars regularly, into that area. Eventually things happen, right? And there's all kinds of stories that people can share about. It took a year, 2 years just to get my first listing, and then that one led to 2 more, and blah 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 blah. But it's when the inconsistency is usually when people don't see that tipping point that ever really comes. And that's one of the common mistakes I would say that I see from some agents who kind of give up too early on certain strategies, depending on what it is. But there's so many different ways out there to be able to get business. You don't have to lean on that. But if someone wants to, that's really my opinion, the way that they get results from it.
Right. Whatever you pick, just focus on it and stick with it for a while. I think, of course, we can all agree that it's when we jump too quickly from one tactic to another, and we feel like, man, I'm not seeing results in any area. I think it's really, you really have to just stick with it. At least 6 months, maybe a year before you sit back and test how did that perform for us. And so, part of that is, finding the right partners, and for, even direct mail, like who's going to create the piece, who's going to make sure it gets to the printer on time. That's one piece, is the leverage and how your organization is structured and who is going to be, wearing that hat, if you will. The other piece is budget. You need a red light, green light. You need to pace yourself and be strategic about what investments you're making, and then tracking the performance of those investments. And that's just being a business owner.
For sure.
And deciding, do we keep with this or do we pivot? And if we are going to invest in this, how much do we feel comfortable doing? And, there's always a limit there.
Yeah, no doubt. Makes sense. You mentioned earlier, Rock, that of the businesses you've been in, this one you feel like has been the most, I forgot the exact word you used, but it was either the most ideal fit or the one that you think has resonated with you the most. Why do you think that is? What is it about real estate that you find most rewarding?
Well, I think a piece of it is, I am a Tampa native. I feel like I know this, and I'm one of Tampa's biggest fans, I think. I love to be an ambassador for Tampa. This is a fascinating industry in that, if you've come from other industries where your clientele is very specific and nuanced, for example, B2B, you might be tasked with calling on only banks in some business, only hospitals in another business. And within that hospital, the key decision maker who you need to talk with is the CFO, for example. So here I feel like we're blessed. Every single person that drives by drives by here, we're watching all these cars pass by, anyone you look at has some connection or tie to the topic of real estate, and you get to be the subject matter expert in the room, who people turn to, hopefully, for advice when it's their time to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. So I just think it's, I've always been a relatively social person. I love Tampa. I love, being in my car. I don't like sitting behind a desk all day long, and so it's a really great fit for me.
Yeah, man, I can see it. And it seems like you really enjoy it, which I think is part of the success ratio that somebody needs, right? Is to be able to actually enjoy what they're doing. And it kind of shows in how they commit to the role and what all that's going to mean for them. A couple things I want to talk about on the personal side for people who might not know you that well yet, just to let people get to know Rock a little bit more. So you mentioned earlier that you guys have 2 children, right? And you have a baby that's 10 months old, and your oldest is 2. Is that what you said?
My oldest is 4.5.
4.5 now. Yeah. Okay. Boy, girl?
So Nicholas, we call him Nico, is our 4.5-year-old boy, and we have Madison, who is our 10-month-old, almost 11-month-old girl.
Madison is the baby, so one of each already. It's a nice little symmetrical family that you have going on there. That works.
We had kids later in life, and so we had the perfect scenario: one boy, one girl.
What do you guys love to do for fun when you're just getting a chance to relax and enjoying Tampa?
Jenny and I like, we like to get out. We're foodies. We like to get out and eat and try all the new restaurants, and we have our favorites, of course. And that's, again, too, is we love to, a lot of our clients become friends, and we like to celebrate with them their closings, over, a nice 3 or 4 hour dinner, and really get to know them better. So it's nice that it's
a great way to build relationships too. More business 100%. Happens over the dinner table than pretty much anywhere else. Maybe than the golf course. I don't know.
Yeah, I play a little golf, but not enough to warrant getting out there weekly. But yeah, so and then with the family, we if we can get away, which it's usually at that age, 4 and 2.
Yeah, it's tough to travel.
It's tough to travel. It
Yeah.
has to be well orchestrated. But we live in the Hyde Park area, and so we can throw the kids on the bike, and we can ride our bikes to the local parks,
beautiful neighborhood.
or into the Hyde Park Village and Bayshore. And so
Is most of your business in South Tampa too, would you say?
again,
pretty spread out.
Because I think I'm here and I spend a lot of time here. I went to school at Chamberlain, which is in North Tampa, and grew up in the Carrollwood area. We really get calls, from people who have Aspire everywhere. I would say though, we live and we work. My office is less than a mile from my home in South Tampa, and so from just an efficiency standpoint, it makes sense for us to develop in our area, and so we have that has been our focus, if there has been a focus on what geo. But I'll drive 45 minutes or an hour if I have to help an old friend or a colleague or a referral, find the right fit. And
especially since you like being in your car, as you said earlier, so why not?
It's not so
I'm going
bad.
to get paid to do it, so I might as well.
I don't like rush hour traffic, but if we get a referral. And we probably won't spend a whole lot of time down in Sarasota, but St. Petersburg, the beaches, on the occasion.
Tampa Bay is the sweet spot.
Tampa's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
If you look at the scatter plot of our production, it's mostly concentrated in South Tampa, but then a lot of Carrollwood and North Tampa, Land O'Lakes, Wesley Chapel, some of the growth areas, Trinity, Newport Richey in some cases, and then as far south as probably Riverview on occasion, and that type of thing.
I got a couple rapid fire questions for you as we wrap up our episode here in a minute or two. So, do you have a favorite book or seminar or author even that I think has made an impact on you personally or professionally?
Yeah, there's a few that come to mind. I would say the one that I'm kind of revisiting again, and this may not be a surprise to many real estate people, is the MREA book, which is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
Yeah, it's a common one.
The red book
comes up a lot on this
Bible,
podcast.
Yeah, I always keep that at my desk, and anytime I have a spare 10 minutes or 15 minutes, I'll read a few pages and pick up where I left off. And I think that's a type of text
that's timeless, never gets old.
Yeah, you'll read it over and over again and steal ideas. Outside of that. It's really I listen to a lot of podcasts. You have
a favorite podcast?
Grant Cardone's interesting, and some of the things that he's up to in terms of investing. I'm a big Tony Robbins fan from the old school.
So am
I. So I can always listen to something there. There's a lot of more. There's some emerging podcasts. I'd have to pull it up, but there's the $100 MBA. I think is one of them, which I've. Like The Science of Success is an interesting podcast.
I've listened to that too. It's a good one. Yeah. I like Tony's stuff too, just because it's all about the mindset,
Right.
So really, I think most of our success in business stems from that, right? Like, what are the thoughts that we allow ourselves to believe, understanding the roots of our belief systems and why that's important. And so I know Tony's really a master of the psychology behind all of that. I've gone to a bunch of his events as well over the years. So he definitely has a lot to offer from that perspective for sure.
Totally.
Do you have a favorite movie or TV show?
Recently, I'm really big into documentaries. Always have been, probably always will be. So I'm the kind of person, if I have a few minutes to watch TV, I'll turn on Netflix, I'll go to the documentary series, and I'll see if there's something I haven't watched.
Yep.
The recent Earth series, I think there's one that digs into the history of the universe.
Yep.
And
I've been watching that too,
narrated
actually.
by Morgan Freeman. That one kind of that just.
He's always the voice of God, isn't he?
That's right.
It always seems like it anyway.
Yeah, the great creator. Yeah, that's fascinating. I think they do a great job with the high definition, and if you have a good TV,
no doubt.
Watch it on.
This might be an easy one because I'm assuming, as an Italian, I have to believe you like Italian food. But is that the go-to spot for restaurants, Italian restaurants, Italian food? Is that your thing?
Well, when you grow up in a restaurant family, nothing's ever good enough.
Yeah.
Right. So you tend to be quite picky, and then when you spend 5 years in Manhattan, you're spoiled with the options for food, and so your standards are kind of altered so when I came back from New York City, I was a little disappointed in Tampa's options for restaurants, and so I But honestly, like in the last, since I've been back in 2017, it's been a renaissance.
Oh yeah, Tampa's blown
and
up.
we're really fortunate. Olivia is one of our go-to destinations. There are other. Rocco's is great for Italian food, even.
So if someone wants to get on your good side, it's just a gift certificate to Olivia's and you're golden.
Hey, that'd be just fine with me,
There you go, people. There's the way to get in with Rock and Jennifer right there.
Yeah, so there's some really great things going on in the food scene here.
Now, this is one of my favorite questions, just to get people to think about, the purpose of it all, right? The legacy that we want to leave behind, Rock. So when you think about when your time comes when maybe you're not as focused on the business anymore, hopefully that's many, many years from now, you're sitting on that rocking chair and thinking back to what you want to be most remembered for and the type of legacy that you would be important to you, right? What do you think matters most, or what do you think that will look like at that time? What would you want to be most remembered for? What's most important to you as far as a legacy goes?
Yeah, it's a good one, and it's one that we don't spend a lot of time thinking about. But I guess more than anything, I would want to be remembered as somebody who cared, who genuinely cared about the people I encountered during my time. And of course, I would want to make sure that I didn't burn any bridges along the way, or if I did, I had the humility to go back and clean that up, before it's all over, right? And so, I'd like to say that I can, I do think about the next generation more now as a father than ever. And so, I lived the majority of my life up through my mid to late 30s. It was all about me, and the immediate family and your close friends and circle. But it was more about the experiences of life. Now, I think as you become a parent, you're leaving a generation behind, potentially, kids, grandkids, if you're lucky. And then just, leaving this place a better place than you found it.
Yeah.
So really,
I can relate to that too.
So
as a dad, I think it just forces you to think differently. You have a different perspective on what lessons you want to leave your kids.
Right.
Because, they're an extension of you, right? As far as what's most important. And you hope that the core values that you hold dear are going to actually mean something, to them, and they can show that in the way that they live their life. So I can relate to that for sure.
It's that alignment, right? It's
the
things that you feel in your heart, making sure that they're reflected in your words and also your actions.
No doubt. And it's funny because Tony Robbins talks a lot about the quality of our life is based on the quality of our relationships. And you mentioned like just having those quality, deep, authentic relationships where people actually feel like you are real, genuine, that you genuinely care about them, whether that's clients, which I think has a lot to do with your success in real estate too, right? Your clients probably need to feel like you actually are truly listening to them and care about what happens on the at the end result of the sale or whatever the case may be, and it's not just going to be a one-time transaction and never again. So there's a lot of content there. We could probably spend a whole other podcast talking about the power of relationships and how to get there. But for someone, Rock, who might want to pick your brain a little bit more, maybe they were connected to some part of your story, wanted to just follow up with a couple of questions, what's the best way for someone to reach you?
Honestly, my phone, feel free to give me a call or drop me a text, 813-210-4894. The email's, it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's rock@scaglionerudamiller.com.
There we go.
So there you go.
Yeah, we'll get that up on the description too.
Sounds
so
good.
You guys can see that on the YouTube channel. We're going to end the episode the way we do every episode, which is with a challenge for anybody who took the time to listen through to the episode. Ultimately, the goal of these episodes is to provide some action steps that you can take that's going to move you forward in a personal or professional direction towards the life that you want to create, right? And so maybe it's something you heard Rock is, his story is fascinating with a lot of the different things that he has done. And some of you might be out there and maybe you're kind of dabbling with real estate and you're holding on to another position or holding on to another career. And, obviously Rock made a commitment to come back from New York and be able to join real estate full time and partner up with Jennifer. And I don't think he regrets that decision, at this time. And so maybe you're somebody who needs to make a decision like that. Or maybe you just need to focus on one of the two of the lead sources that Rock threw out there as a potential strategy. Or maybe it's pick up the book that he mentioned, right? The real estate millionaire agent. So whatever it might be, there's always some action step that you can take if you're listening intently. And if you invested the time to watch this episode, let's make sure we do something to put it to work and move you forward in the direction that you want to go. And if you do that, then it was worth it to invest the time for the episode. So we will see you, of course, on the next episode of Tampa Bay Real Producers. Stay classy. We'll see you then.